All right, and we are live. Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. It's Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing, bringing you back for another slice of social media pie. And very excited because I have a very special guest with me here today, Jeff Wright, who's from Hitachi Business Finance. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Good. Well, it's a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to the discussion today, guys. And sometimes I have, on my show, I call this social media pie, and it's kind of an acronym, and I call it pie. Pie stands for something. So I invite inspirational people who inform and educate you. And sometimes, as you know, pies are sweet, and sometimes pies are a little bit more savory. And today I would kind of call this more of a savory slice of pie because we're going to actually be talking about 6 considerations when planning for a COVID business restart. So before we jump into that conversations, what I'd like to do is just welcome anybody who is joining us on the show here this morning. And Jeff and I can't see who you are until you leave a comment below. And this also helps me to kind of check and make sure the audio and video feeds are working properly. Jeff, we're actually broadcasting right now across three platforms. We're on Facebook Live, we're on LinkedIn Live, and YouTube. So I'm going to invite anybody who's watching us on any of those platforms. Maybe you work with Jeff, you know Jeff, maybe you just got a notification coming up from me, but do give us a comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from and where in the house or the office are you watching from. Now, Jeff, I'm in Fraser, Michigan, which is in Macomb County in my home office. Where are you? Are you back in the office or are you working from home still right now too?
No, I'm working in my office at home and in Lake Orion, Michigan, which is about, say, 30 miles from downtown Detroit.
Okay, very nice. In Lake Orion, is there actually a lake in Lake Orion, or is it one of the cities that just has the name lake as a part of it?
Well, I only moved here about 6 months ago. At least I got an office and I'm not working from the kitchen table like I was before.
There you go. That's a luxury these days for sure.
Yeah, my wife appreciates that too.
Oh, I bet she does. Well, good. Well, it's a pleasure having you on the show here with us today, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And I'm just going to pop. It looks like we do have a couple of folks that did add in some comments here, so I'm just going to pop them up on here. Good morning, Irina. Thanks for joining us. We have Laura online with us as well, Cynthia, and I'll pop a couple other names here in just a minute. Now, before we jump into the discussion today about business tips for a COVID restart, Jeff, why don't you, if you could, take a few minutes, tell us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your background, and a bit about Hitachi, and then we'll jump into that conversation.
Okay, I'm Jeff Wright. I'm Senior Vice President and Business Development Officer for Hitachi Business Finance. We're located in Rochester, Michigan, which is about 25 miles north of Detroit. We provide asset-based lines of credit and factoring facilities for small businesses that do not qualify for traditional bank financing. Our focus is on manufacturers, distributors, and service companies that have business-to-business receivables and business assets we can leverage to provide them working capital.
Awesome. And it's probably a hot topic right now. You're hearing a lot about businesses that are struggling with financing and keeping their businesses afloat during COVID. So I have to imagine you're getting some new phone calls nowadays from organizations.
Right. It'll be a good time for alternative sources of financing as the banks start to tighten up their underwriting requirements, and we can be there as a resource for them to fund their working capital needs.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's jump into this conversation, and I'm going to put the topic back up on screen so that folks can see. I'm just going to modify. I'm kind of working the background in StreamYard here. I want to put the topic up on screen here, and we're going to talk about 6 considerations when planning for a COVID business restart. And Jeff, it's been very interesting times to say the least. You keep hearing this phrase unprecedented, and then people saying, I want to go back to the precedented. Like I want to go back to the pre-COVID times, but it is what it is. And you've probably seen a lot of business cycles throughout your career that are happening. So we're in this phase right now where things kind of took a pause, and then, we're now starting to figure out, okay, this is going to be around for a little while. So what do we need to do to restart our business? So what advice do you have for folks that are watching me? Maybe there are business owners that are watching here today that are thinking, okay, how do we get this thing restarted? So what advice would you share for those individuals?
Well, I've been in this industry for 38 years in various roles as a field examiner, portfolio manager, assistant credit officer, ran my own office, business development. I also actually spent a number of years as a workout officer. So I've been in the asset-based industry for quite a while, and I've seen my share of recessions, starting back in '82 when prime was 21%.
Wow.
Now we're which is considerably higher than what they're paying today. But yeah, there's been some challenging times in the past, and I've got that experience, and try to pass on that experience to my clients and prospects to help them through these troubled times.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what year? Go ahead.
Well, this is troubled times, and we had 10 or so years of growth in the country, and it might be the first time some of these businesses have had to go through these troubled times and come up with plans and prepare for these the restart.
Yeah. So what you're experiencing, what I'm hearing you saying is, and I've heard this from other people too, it's kind of like a cycle. I mean, businesses will go up or the economy does go up, and then the economy goes down, and we're riding, for a while we were riding the up wave, and now there's going to be a downturn. We're already starting to experience that. But there are some patterns that you've seen through your past experiences with helping businesses that, even though this feels different, COVID feels different, and it's not just a singular event on a singular day, it's over a longer period of time, the impact to business is feeling somewhat familiar, would you say?
Right. The ones that will survive and do the best are the ones that prepare and plan for it, and also communicate that plan to both internal and external resources, their customers, the suppliers, even their own staff. And so it's better to be proactive in doing this than and then try to do it by the seat of your pants, and then it may be too late.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. And when we're in the middle of a situation, I think sometimes we react emotionally from that point of, what do I need to do now? And you get a bit frantic on some of those approaches that you take. But I really like, when you are, I guess, the thought of when you work with other people who can help you see through, making decisions logically, which leads me to kind of my next question for you. And I know this is part of what you do through your business, but, what role do advisors play with this whole process of restarting your business?
They could be a key resource for especially small businesses that may not have the internal resources. They can't do it all themselves. Don't be afraid to ask for help in preparing a plan or preparing a cash flow forecast. Use those resources to better prepare you for the return during this time.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what if somebody's watching and they think, well, I'm too small, my business is too small. Oh, looks like Jeff, his video may have closed. We're gonna give him a second to come back. On my social media pie show, guys, we never make mistakes. We have learning opportunities, right? And sometimes there are glitches that happen. Technology goes out, Wi-Fi hiccups in the middle of things, and that's okay. We roll with the punches. This is what we do. We can't control all of the technology things that are out there, but we can control our reaction to it. So I'm just going to keep talking here until I see Jeff come back into the green room. While I'm waiting for him to do so, I'm just going to pop over to the comments, and I want to say good morning to all of you. Katie, I know Katie's on Jeff's team at Hitachi. She's probably on the phone to Jeff and saying, hey, is everything okay? We'll get him on in a second here. We have Arena joining us from New York. Good morning, Arena. Cynthia is joining us from Trotwood, Ohio, in her home office. Cynthia, I feel like I know you because I see you so often online, and really a pleasure to have you in on the conversation here today. We're international. We have Ogun Kami joining us from Nigeria. We have Para joining us from Hong Kong. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your names correctly. If not, I do apologize. We have Sharon locally joining us here from Metro Detroit. She's in Lathrop Village. Good morning. And we have Laura Robb, who's on here with us as well. I see we have Hadi joining us from Iran and Samuel from Nigeria. I can't see what your code is, Samuel. I'm going to look you up on LinkedIn to see what that code is in your header graphic there. but we're just getting a conversation started here today about considerations when planning for a COVID business restart. So while we're waiting for Jeff to come back in, guys, I am curious. For those that are watching, are you a business owner? Are you an entrepreneur? Has your business taken a pause during COVID? And are you back in business now, or are you starting to kind of ramp things back up again? For me, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm self-employed, and I've been kind of doing Meller marketing for many years. I was doing a little bit of a side hustle first, and about 3 years ago, I had the universe nudged me forward. I had the opportunity to kind of explore what was next for me. And as I was interviewing, I started getting asked to do different consulting projects and LinkedIn training and whatnot. And I made a decision a few months into that, gosh, if I put all my efforts into marketing myself, I could actually make this a business. So now this is what I do. I work for myself. And at the beginning of 2020, I was like, things were really starting to take off for me. I was getting more speaking engagements. I was doing more LinkedIn coaching sessions. And at the beginning of the year, I was like, wow, 2020 is the year. I was hitting my revenue goals month over month over month. And then March hit, and everything just, I remember in the beginning of the month, I think I had a couple of speaking engagements out of town. The second week of the month was the last time I think I was out in public in terms of at events. I had an Inforum event on Thursday, March 12th. I remember to this day. After that, I went and met a friend for pie at Grand Traverse Pie. And then I think I stopped at Somerset to pick something up, and then I went home, and that was about it. And then everything kind of happened. So the next week was really when meetings were being canceled. I had a couple in person, and things were kind of being canceled. And I still had some client work at that point. I was doing virtual training and coaching, but then it was like the week after that, I think everybody was just trying to get their bearings. Businesses were closing their doors, getting employees set up in home offices. And the speaking engagements, initially we were like, okay, well, this is probably going to end in April. So the April engagements stayed, the May engagements, the conferences were on. And then I think the more time that went on, it was like the May events got canceled, and they said, we're going to postpone until fall. And the June events were postponed, and then organizations started saying, hey, we're going to wait until next year. So for me, my business never really stopped, but it did definitely take a shift. And in the beginning for me, to Jeff's point of reaching out to trusted advisors, I started reaching out to people in my network. I reached out to my CPA. I had a legal team I use Legal Shield. So I reached out to a couple of those folks, and I started asking for advice. What do I need to do right now to make sure that my business is at the right level to maintain myself moving forward? And then the other thing was like, well, I'm not doing a lot of client work because things are pausing right now. So what else can I do to help others in the community and help other businesses and whatnot? And at that point, I started launching. I did a LinkedIn for Job Seekers webinar series, and it's free. I don't charge. Those folks are unemployed, and I'm trying to help them. And then I started ramping up LinkedIn Live, and I started reaching out to people in my network and said, who wants to chat? Let's talk about your business. Let's talk about how you are shifting your business to help people during COVID, or what other topics. Businesses is still continuing, and this will continue afterwards. And I started finding people, like Leon LeBracken, he was talking about the economic impact of COVID. And people like Tina Marie Wallfield, we were kind of talking about the work that she's doing with HR Unite. And we had Terry Bean talking about networking, and, TEDx Detroit, they're kind of shifting to a virtual event this year. And, just a lot of really great people talking about different topics. And as time goes on, I would start to reach out to other people in my network. And Jeff actually wrote a blog. I'm going to pull it up on screen here. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to join us back on or not. If not, we may need to reschedule and bring him back on a later date. But he did have a blog. Oh, it looks like he's coming back in the green room. I'm going to pull him back in as I share this with you guys up on screen right now. But he did have a blog on 6 considerations when planning for a COVID business restart. And I said, well, gosh, that would make for an interesting topic. So, hey, Jeff, I think we've got you back. I was vamping for a little bit there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
That's okay. Hey, technology happens. And in the world we are in right now, we can't control. Sometimes Wi-Fi's go down and internet's kind of conk out. So I was just kind of giving a little bit of the backstory, and I was just pulling up the blog, explaining to folks that, I actually reached out to you, and after reading your blog and some of the different considerations that you kind of put in here, I said this would make for a great live topic. So all is well. We'll continue on with our conversation right now here, Jeff. we were talking, as you dropped off, we were talking about, how reaching out to people, they can help to advise you during the restart. So I think we'll probably pick up there, and then I have a couple more questions I'd like to ask you too.
Well, cash is going to be king. It always been king, but it's even more so during these troubled times. Having good cash management skills will be critical for those companies that do survive. So they got to prepare. And what I suggest is having a rolling 13-week cash flow forecast in place. After the first week, you look at the actual numbers compared to the plan, and then be flexible enough to make changes along the way. And if you don't have the skills to do so, look to those third-party consultants to maybe help you in preparing that plan or that forecast.
So I remembered I was asking you a question when I think our Wi-Fi hiccup there. So my question was, someone who's watching this video today might say, well, gosh, I actually could use the advice from someone like Jeff, but I don't think my business is large enough. And what would your response be there? I mean, are you still open to those conversations, or how big does a business have to be in order for you to take that conversation and be able to provide them some guidance?
It could be any size. It could be even a startup company that doesn't have the resources, the internal resources to prepare a plan and act on it. So it can be any size company. The ones that are larger may have their own internal people with those kind of skills, but the smaller ones don't. And they got to be able to reach out to somebody else and ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because that's going to be key. The company may need additional funding from somewhere, from the owner, from the investors, from the lender. So they got to proactively plan for that and be able to provide the financial and collateral reporting that's necessary for those lenders or investors to make those decisions to help.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it sounds like you can kind of help to think through things both logically and creatively too. And let's not just look for a quick fix, but let's look at viability on a shorter to longer term basis. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
That's correct. And they got to assess, what their current cash situation is, because the suppliers are going to want to be paid. Your lenders that may have deferred payments are going to want to start payments again to pay down the principal balance and maybe some term loans. The customers are going to need to be addressed. So you got to have constant communication with those internal and external resources.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So
and the PPP money is going to last for a little while. It should only be meant as a bridge to get to the next level. It certainly saved a lot of companies, but you can't rely on them to continue funding your operation. You gotta look internally to see what's available to you to make those decisions.
That's a good point.
Your landlord's going to need to pay their rent.
Right.
Utilities and taxes and insurance need to be paid. So you got to assess those cash needs.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And we have some short-term implications, and there's the liabilities that you had that are continuing to roll through. You've got to be thinking about as well. And while the revenue may not be there supporting it because of what's happening with the market right now with COVID and everything out there, there's still some obligations that you have. So it sounds like you can kind of help to guide people through that process.
Yeah, and they got to start looking internally at their staffing needs. And do you have the right staff in place to do the restart? Because if you don't have the staff, that's your big asset. And some people may not feel comfortable coming back to work. And those people may be experienced people you may need to replace to restart.
Yeah.
And they're not easy to replace, some of them. Even before COVID-19, a lot of businesses had a hard time finding experienced, qualified people.
Right.
And if you don't have those people in place when the restart, you risk losing out on opportunities. You may risk losing a customer to a competitor. So it's important to have those people in place and make them feel safe when they do get back to the office.
That's a really good point. Now, has your team started returning to the office yet in any way, shape, or form, or are you still all working from home offices right now?
Most of our are working from home still.
Yeah.
In fact, we got a little a picnic this afternoon to all get together for the first time in 4 months.
That's nice. It'll be nice to see.
That's gonna be nice to see everybody.
Socially distant type of a picnic situation.
Right. So it'll be nice to see everybody, and like I say, I haven't seen them in 4 months, and
wow.
I've only talked to them on the phone or maybe through a Zoom meeting. Yeah. So it'll be nice to get together.
That's nice. And we're experiencing a little bit of mild weather in here in Michigan right now, Jeff, aren't we? I mean, we had those really hot 90 degrees, almost like 100-degree days. And now we're like, I don't know what's supposed to go up to this weekend, but it's like, 70s, 80s. So it's beautiful for Michigan.
Yeah, it is very nice. I talked to somebody from Arizona the other day, and it was like 115.
Yeah, but it's a dry heat, okay? It's a dry heat.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's 115. That's 115. And we'll be complaining about this come January, February, Jeff, when we have those frigid Michigan winters where you go outside some days and you almost can't catch your breath from the cold, the air, and you have to like cover your face, getting out to your car in the morning.
Right.
So shifting back to the conversation again, and if you're just joining us, for anybody who's watching, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, we're talking about considerations when planning for a COVID business restart. And we've got Jeff from Hitachi Business Finance joining us today. So I'm going to throw another question at you here, Jeff. Why is it important to have current financial and collateral reporting available?
It's critical not only for management decision making. Third parties want to see that financial information so they can make decisions. It may be for an investor wanting maybe to invest in the company. It's critical for the lender to get timely financial information so they can make credit decisions on their end, whether to continue funding or move you to special assets, and so or advance additional funds. So it's important to have those numbers available to them to make timely decisions. If you don't, then you risk making bad decisions or untimely decisions that can affect the cash flow of the company.
Do you and your team help with that financial reporting element, or do you provide them guidance on how to start that process if they are a small kind of startup operation and they don't have that type of a process or system in place yet?
Well, we do have, I help mentor some small businesses through an incubator or through the Chamber of Commerce, and I have the resources to point them in the right direction if they do need help.
Okay.
They should rely on those trusted advisors, the CPAs, the turnaround consultants or operational consultants, and their attorneys, and help them prepare for when they do go into the bank or do talk to an investor about what's needed to get to the cash they need to grow the business.
Yeah, and sound like you're helping to get them in the best position possible to obtain that funding from whatever the sources are, and those are sources that make the most sense. So, and I know there's a lot of different options available out there for people that are looking for sources, financial sources to help support their income. What can owners expect from their lenders through that process?
Well, I've talked to a lot of lenders recently, and they pretty much put everything on hold right now. They've been addressing the PPP applications, and soon will be addressing the loan forgiveness. But you can't expect that to happen forever. They're going to be getting the second quarter numbers or current financial information, and then making decisions on how they're going to address these borrowers. And there probably is going to be a lot of loan defaults and out-of-formula situations that will need to be addressed.
Yeah.
Those that were doing fairly well before COVID-19, they may want to restructure and keep those deals. The ones that are having trouble before or during, they may want to move to the special asset groups and ask them to seek alternative sources of financing.
Okay.
So, but you got to keep them informed. The worst thing you can do is avoid them, and because they don't want surprises. So you got to stay connected with your lender and keep them informed of what the status of the company is, what your cash needs are, and so be able to have that financial and collateral information will help them and making some decisions that might help the company.
And it sounds like too, like having a candid and open rapport with your lender is important there too, Jeff, because I mean,
Right.
the reality is everybody is facing the same. It's not like this is affecting one industry, one company, one area of the country, one place in the world. It's pretty widespread right now. And it sounds like from what I'm hearing from you that, the folks that are kind of planning ahead and planning throughout this process are probably going to fare a little bit better in the long run than those that are like, well, I'm just not going to share anything that's going on, and I'm not going to call my lender back when he's calling, and would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely. But they should stay in touch with their customers too, just find out what their current status is. When are they going to release POs? That will help in addressing your staffing needs going forward. But you got to have that conversation with them so you know what inventory you need to buy to complete those jobs. You may have the wrong mix in place right now, so you have to address those inventory needs, and you'll need cash to do so. What's the status with the customer? Are they financially healthy? I mean, if you're going to do some work for somebody and complete a job, will you get paid for it? And what's the timing of getting paid? Will it be 150 days or will it be 30 days? You got to have those discussions so that you can build that into your cash forecast.
Are you seeing some changes that are happening with payment terms there, where people are giving more flexibility or longer payment terms now, just kind of with respect to what's happening out there?
Yeah, they are working with them as much as possible. The lenders are extending terms or eligibility terms to keep that availability so that they can service those needs they do have. But the suppliers are going to have the same issues. You're all in the same boat. They're going to extend you out. And so you've got to have that balance so that at least your payables terms are equal to what your receivable terms are, so you don't have that drain on cash flow.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. And I'm asking you a lot of questions here, Jeff. I mean, anything else that we haven't talked about yet that you wanted to kind of add into the conversation?
Yeah, they got to stay in touch with their suppliers. The disruption that can result from that will affect everything else. So if your customers can't supply product to you, then you've got to have a plan B. You can't just wait to the last minute and then try to find another supplier. The end result is that you can't deliver the product on time. You may lose a customer that you've had a long relationship with. You may lose them forever. So you got to stay in contact with those suppliers. And if you need to negotiate extended terms because your cash is tight, you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's probably a little bit of that balance between understanding the world is all being impacted and the supply chain is all changing, day to day, month to month, and maybe things are getting a little bit more smoothed out now that this has been going on long enough. I imagine initially there was probably some more hiccups in the process, and now things may be changing, but there is definitely a ripple effect, right, Jeff, in terms of what's happening across industries, and
that's definitely the case.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm going to open it up to the audience. If anyone has questions for Jeff, please comment below, ask him a question now, or if you have any thoughts on this conversation, any of the topics that we've talked about so far. We're talking today about considerations for planning for a COVID business restart, and we're talking about, some different methodologies and processes with regards to financing and keeping your business viable. Jeff talked a lot about different, routes to take and conversations to have, reaching out to different advisors. So if you have any questions about that or thoughts on the conversation, please feel free to add them to the comments. And we usually have about a 10 or 15 second delay from the time I say it to the time it goes on LinkedIn, Jeff. So we may give it another 30 seconds to a minute here to allow for folks to join into the conversation and ask any questions that they may have. While we're waiting to see if any questions are coming in, I have another question for you, Jeff. What options are available to folks if their lender is not supporting their financing needs during the restart? What other options do they have if their lender is saying sorry?
Yeah, they should also be thinking about that too, because chances are the operating performance hasn't been there. Sales levels are down. You lost money. You may be out of formula with your current lender, created some defaults in your loan documents. They should be considering alternative sources of financing if the bank says no and says, sorry, we can't help you. If they have POs in hand but can't fund them, you may talk to a PO lender that'll help finance the purchase of the inventory. PO lenders work with asset-based lenders like ourselves. They'll fund the inventory, and then when the job is completed and shipped, the asset-based lender or factor will finance that invoice and pay out the PO lender and provide additional working capital for the client.
Okay.
There's asset-based lenders like ourselves that can be a bridge to a traditional lender to leverage the business assets of the company, leverage the receivables, inventory, equipment, and some lenders even finance the real estate to provide additional working capital during this time.
Okay, great.
We can also go to family and friends if they still got money, or investors. But the investors will delete their ownership interest and exert some control over the company. Asset-based lenders like ourselves do not take an ownership interest in business assets, but provide working capital for them.
Okay. So a couple of different kind of creative options, and it sounds like there's different paths to achieve what that desired outcome might be, which is, financial stability for your company in the short term and in the longer run, which aren't always a bank and a lender. So it sounds like you got a couple of different solutions to look at there. And then while we were waiting for you to come back on, Jeff, I was popping this blog up on the screen here. And a lot of the things that you talked about today are kind of addressed in the blog. Is that right?
Yes.
So
So use it as a tool to guide you if you need it. And you can always reach out to me at my email, jwright, WRIGHT, at HitachiBusinessFinance.com. And I can help them and get them pointed in the right direction. If I can't help them, I can use my resources or database to provide some names that can help them.
Awesome. That's good to know. And I'm going to drop into the comments right now on the video itself, guys. I'm going to put the link to this blog in the comments. So for those of you that are watching, you'll be able to come over and click onto that blog and read more about it. And I think on that page, it actually has, I'm going to copy your contact information. So I see your email address right here, Jeff. I'm going to throw that into the screen right now. Make sure
you can also go to our website. You can also go to our website at www.HitachiBusinessFinance.com. A number of us in our group write blogs to help small businesses and give them some ideas to think about to grow their business.
Good. Awesome. Well, we'll drop that in there. And then I'm also going to throw up on screen for you guys here real quick. Let me see if I can navigate, trying to do the co-pilot and piloting at the same time here today. So I'm just going to pop up the Hitachi business website. If you guys are interested in checking that out, I'll put the web address here up on the screen as well for you to look that up. And then the last thing I want to do to show people on screen here, Jeff, is your LinkedIn profile. So if people wanted to connect with you after watching the show here today, Jeff, are you open to new invitation requests from folks in the network?
Oh, no, definitely. I enjoy helping small businesses and even lower middle market companies grow their business, either through financing through us or providing them an alternative they can go to rather than just say, sorry, I can't help you, and turn the page.
Okay.
I use my resources to help small business.
Awesome. And do you only work with companies in Michigan, Jeff? Or are you working with companies throughout the U.S. as well? Or what's your core kind of audience that you're working with?
Our client base is anywhere in the U.S. It's domiciled in the U.S. And we've got a Canadian group that helps finance factoring and asset-based deals up in Canada, so I can always refer them if they've got an operation in Canada.
Okay, good to know. So I do have, I see a question, and this name is looking familiar to me. Toby Dom has a question. And he's asking, can I keep my bank in place and get incremental funds from you? So thoughts there.
Yes, we can work in partnership with banks where they'll actually subordinate receivables to us, particular debtors that we can finance, and they can keep their loan in place if they're capped out or they don't want to advance any additional funds.
Okay. Does Toby work with you? His name is looking very familiar to me. Does he work with you at Hitachi?
Yeah, Toby worked with us. I worked with Toby for quite a few years, and a lot of respect for him, but he went on his own last year, and we still stay in touch.
That's great. I love it to see, both current coworkers and former coworkers when they come and join the conversation, because I think it really is nice because it shows support. It shows that the community is kind of paying attention and watching the conversation. And Jeff, this is actually a technique when I speak out in public, especially to students. I always say, if you have a guest lecturer coming into your classroom, think about like one question you could ask them, because that does two things. One is it makes the guest lecturer feel really good because it shows that you're paying attention to the topic. And there may be folks that are watching, that are even students that are studying finance, that are maybe thinking about getting into finance as a line of work. And I would encourage, if anyone's watching right now, this is your opportunity to ask Jeff questions about, kind of what he's doing, and ask some questions. And it brings your name up on the screen. It gives you an opportunity to get some visibility from the broadcast. And then I did see a little bit earlier, I'm sure Katie is still watching. I'm going to pull her name up on the screen as well. Katie from Jeff's team at Hitachi as well, saying good morning. And a question I'm often asked, with social media is it okay for employees to like each other's posts or to like the company page posts? And I always say absolutely, because it's social media. It's not just business, professional networking, and demonstrating support of your coworkers by liking, by going onto their live interviews and showing conversations. I think it's a really nice thing to do. So it's nice to see some familiar names that are out here. And Cynthia says, thank you. I want to thank you, Jeff, for the conversation here today. And as we start to wrap here, Jeff, I want to give you the opportunity. Is there any final comments you'd like to offer to the group, pieces of advice for business owners that may be watching this interview, anything else that we haven't addressed, or any shout outs, anything else you want to give before we wrap up here today?
Yeah, in conclusion, I think they got to have a plan in place and communicate that plan to everybody within their own organization and to their customer base, their suppliers, their lenders, and have a plan B. Don't wait to the last minute and then try to make a decision. It may be too late. Yeah. So manage your cash, have that plan B, and use your trusted advisors. Have those people available that have experience in the industry. They may have resources they can tie into to help you get through this troubled time. So have those discussions with the customers, the suppliers, your creditors, to manage that cash, because it's going to be critical going forward.
Yeah, really good points there, Jeff. And just being open to having those conversations, is an important element, a theme I heard you say throughout the conversation here today. So as we wrap here, I want to encourage anybody who is watching, after you leave the video, could you please click to share the video? Maybe there's someone in your network who could benefit from the information that we shared here today, some of the insights and tips that Jeff offered, or the blog that he had to share as well. So please click to share the video, or you can even message it to someone. If you know somebody in your network who may be struggling right now with business viability, and financing is really a sticking point for them right now. Maybe of family members that they don't want to reach out to their lenders and have these conversations, or they're wondering how much longer their business can go on because they're not sure what that future looks like. Share it with them, and maybe Jeff or some member of his team can be able to provide some resources. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll just go ahead, Jeff.
So those trusted advisors can provide good advice. A third-party view of the company is sometimes can be very helpful for these small businesses. Some of these small businesses don't have the owners making all the decisions. Yeah. So it's important to have those people help you through these troubled times, and they may have contacts that in the industry that can help you, or options you can turn to. Yeah, really good point. Good. Well, thank you, Jeff, for your insights here today. And as we wrap here today, I'm going to remind anybody watching to also go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe, and you'll be notified about future LinkedIn live interviews that I have coming up in the series, and additional topics that will be on here. So Jeff, thank you so much for your time. What's on the agenda for you for the rest of the day? You got the picnic, you said, is that this weekend, or when is that? Picnic is this afternoon during lunch, and I'm sure we'll be exchanging thoughts of how we got through this, and maybe the time we can all get back together again. In the meantime, we get to try to be as efficient at our home offices as we can, and service our clients and our prospects. Yeah, well, great. Well, I hope you guys have a great afternoon today, and it's beautiful weather out here. So, all right. Well, thank you, Brenda. look forward to seeing the other guests.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching here today, and appreciate you participating in the conversation with us. And stay healthy and stay safe, and we will see you online again soon. Take care, everybody.
All right, thank you very much. Take care.